Welcome to the Women Matter podcast with your host, Marline Duroseau. Join us as we delve into all things women, from the complexities of fertility to empowering discussions on femininity and confidence. Our segments shine a light on the journey of family building, offering awareness and support to those navigating this path. We're here to tackle impactful topics crucial to women's lives, empowering you to be unapologetically yourself while embracing your femininity. Tune in for insightful conversations and inspiration to live boldly in every aspect of your life. Because here on the Women Matter podcast, every woman's story matters. Hello, welcome back to the Women Matter podcast. I am your host, Marline Duroseau. I'm so excited to be here with you today, as today's topic is something that has been coming up more and more in recent days, and a lot of people are talking about it. So we're going to dive right into it because I know it affects many of us women out there. Yes, today's topic is going to be focused on femininity. Right. What is femininity? Those of you, based on your definition of femininity, based on what it is to you, if you've lost it, how do you get it back? And what are ways that we can embrace our femininity? So we're going to jump right into today's episode. So femininity is something that, in my opinion, right, this isn't an official definition, but in my opinion, femininity is the essence of what makes women nurturing and authentic as women. And although it's not necessarily sex-driven, meaning femininity only exists or is instilled in women, because men also sometimes can tap into or can benefit from tapping into their femininity. So in essence, femininity can exist on both sides. It's not just like masculinity, right, can also exist in women. Femininity can also exist in men. So because I'm not a scientist, I'm not going to try to break down all of the legalities or technical, aspects as it relates to femininity. I'm going to talk to us today from it. I'm going to talk about it today with us from a perspective of what we grew up to know as femininity and what we can do to embrace our femininity and bring it back. Okay. So, and I'll use myself as, one of the examples. So for instance, ever since I was a little girl, I've always been a girly girl. And even as an adult, I am still a girly girl. Now, what is a girly girl, you may ask? I was that young lady and still am that young woman that enjoys dressing up. I enjoy being pretty. I enjoy, I've just gotten into more color, but I enjoy looking nice. I enjoy smelling good. I enjoy making sure when I walk out of the house, like I'm done. Now, some of that also has to do with my upbringing, because my mom always says to us till now, if I call her out of the blue and unplanned, let's say, and we, need to go somewhere, or I would like for her to accompany me. Oh no, 9 times out of 10, that's not happening. Even if I only give her an hour's notice, she needs to have some kind of notice. Why? Because Miss Ma'am needs to get ready. She needs to be dressed up. Her hair needs to be done. She has to have her powder on her face. She doesn't do a whole bunch of makeup, but she likes to look refreshed. She wants to make sure her nails are done. Just a very feminine lady. And I think I know I get a lot of how I am from her. So my mom always says, you always want to present like you want people to receive you. Right? Always present like you want people to receive you, because unfortunately or fortunately, although we're taught to not judge a book by its cover, the first thing people see when they interact with you is they see you. That's their first impression, right? Rightly or wrongly. So she always says, always present how you want to be perceived or received. So with that, I've always kept that in the back of my brain. She was never big on this had to be a label or this had to be name brand, or she wasn't like that. It was, you had to be clean, you had to be presentable, and you have to look nice, point blank, period, right? So that's always stood with me, and stayed with me as a young lady and even into my adulthood. And outside of the femininity associated with that, I've even transferred that into my children, and I am a mom of boys. So keeping that same type of feminine approach in mind, so to speak, I make sure that my boys are always presentable. You don't know who you're going to see outside, because it's always your luck when you think you're running, for a quick errand to the store to pick up a gallon of milk, and that's when you see a childhood friend that you haven't seen in so long, and you're looking quote unquote busted, right? So they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I just saw such and such after so long, and you wouldn't believe how they look. And trust me, all of us in one way or another has been guilty of either being that person on the receiving side of that or being the person that shared how you saw someone and they just looked a hot mess, right? So we always want to be prepared. So that's an aspect of femininity that I think that transcends into masculine, presentation as well. Just making sure that my boys are always well groomed, even if they don't have a fresh haircut, their hair is brushed, their shirts are tucked in, their shirts are ironed, they don't just look wrinkled like they rolled out of bed, right? So always present yourself how you want to be received. So to jump into this a little bit more, I have a few notes here, just to make sure I stay on track and don't start going all off on a tangent. And in terms of understanding femininity, we want to try to figure out what the definition of femininity is. And there's different ways we can define femininity. There's different aspects of femininity that stem from an emotional aspect, physical aspect, and social dimensions. So from an emotional standpoint, as it relates to femininity, emotionally, based on my experience, I know femininity to mean just being calm and direct or nurturing in your delivery. So even if someone upsets you, even if you're feeling emotional about something, the femininity aspect of it comes into play with how you respond and how you're able to control is the wrong word, how you're able to apply your emotions to that situation that you're feeling. Because in a more, reserved way, you're not yelling and calling people out of their name, using vulgar language, things of that nature. Although certain situations you may feel that that is called for, but oftentimes as it relates to femininity, those aren't the type of reactions emotionally that are attributed to femininity. As it relates to the physical aspect of femininity, in my opinion, that's basically how you present. Women normally smell good. People love to hug women, right? Your children, your family members, and it's always kind of like a nice situation when they come and they're like, oh my gosh, you smell so good. And it could just be soap, or it could be a body spray, it could be a perfume or something, right? So there's always that physical, scent as it relates to embracing your femininity, just smelling good. Another thing in terms of the physical is always being groomed. You try to not appear disheveled and someone who's not put together. Again, things don't always have to be pristine and crisp, but the way you present is one that is very classy, very put together, very, polished, so to speak. So that's a lot of the feminine aspect as it relates to the physical situations for femininity. Another thing with the physical presentation, I've always loved to wear high heels. And as a young girl, I either wore sandals, which were very, very cute. Cute meaning, florals, they had pearls, they had, studs on them, just pretty sandals. As I got older, I would wear a lot of high heels. And to wear those high heels, if they're open toe, then maybe your toes aren't done professionally, but your toes are manicured, even if there's no polish. So it's not feminine, meaning you're going to spend all this money to make sure your toes are done, polished, pedicure. No, it's in making sure you're at least polished and clean and look put together. In terms of your attire, The attire can go from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. Why? Because all women are different in their taste on how they dress. Everybody's style is different. So there's no one particular style as it relates to femininity, at least in my opinion. It's about how you dress it up, what accessories you want to wear or not wear. You just have this very polished, put together look, not looking disheveled. So from the physical aspect, that's where I take femininity to look like. And as it relates to the social dimensions, now this is where things can get a little tricky because from a societal point of view, femininity has been back in the conversation lately. And that's where sometimes things tend to take a turn for the uncertain. I don't want to say for the better or for the worse, just a turn for it's taking a turn for the uncertain because society, when I grew up, femininity involved, my mom did all of the cooking, right? My dad didn't cook. My mom washed our clothes. So she was the one going to the laundromat, right? So we attributed laundry, folding clothes, laundromat, cooking, cleaning the house, things of that nature. When I grew up, we attributed those type of tasks and responsibilities to be a more feminine role, right? And my dad was always involved, but I never really saw him hands-on as it related to those particular tasks. So what I mean involved is he is the one that drove. My mom didn't drive. So he would go with her and us to the laundromat. And but that's it. Like go there and then help us help my mom and us get the clothes and things out of the car, help us put them in the machine. But then that was to that extent. When everything was done, he wasn't helping us, fold the clothes. We were folding the laundry, putting it away. And yes, he would then take the prepared laundry and put them in the car so that we can get back home. When we get home, he would bring them upstairs to the house and put them away. But the physical act of completing the actual task was always, in my mother's purview, that based on what I saw growing up. Now, with that, as I became a little older and I ended up moving out, and there was never a sense of, although I felt the need to repeat what I saw based on society, and this that I'm telling you, I also saw it with my aunts, my older cousins, other family members. The women were more tasked with taking care of the quote unquote feminine roles as it related to watching the children, cleaning the clothes, cooking the food, cleaning the house, that type of thing, right? And as I grew older, I felt the urge to repeat what I saw. So when I moved out and I was living with my husband, we weren't married at the time, you know, I felt the need to, okay, let me start the laundry, or let me put this away, or let me do that. And then I would show up to the laundromat and he's actually there with me. We're there. I'm basically, sorting the clothes to put them in a different, machines. And my husband's doing another machine. He's putting the laundry detergent in the machine as well. And he's going to make change. So I didn't really see that growing up. So he said, no, I'm here with you. You don't have to do that by yourself now, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, but I can, and he goes, yes, you can, but you don't necessarily have to do it by yourself. I'm here. I want to help. So slowly but surely, as I got older and grew into my young adulthood, I started to see that although these tasks from a societal norm were deemed feminine, having help to get them done did not make me less of a woman, or did not make me, in the eyes of my husband, less feminine, right? Meaning it's okay to get help and you don't have to necessarily do it yourself. But so that's the transition from how it was when I was younger to when I became, a younger adult. So now that I am in my early 40s, I'm sensing another shift that's happening as it relates to femininity. I'm sensing a lot of talk and seeing a lot of, content, centered around women wanting to be back in the house more, taking care of their children, not necessarily being responsible for holding down a, let's call it 9 to 5 job or working outside the home. And a big discussion is happening as it relates to that. So that's why I wanted to kind of make this video, because I really feel like um, femininity can be, what word am I looking for? Femininity can be attained whether you are a woman that stays home and has those responsibilities at home, or you also are a woman that may go to the workplace and work. So work meaning outside of the workplace. Either you work in the home or you work outside of the home. And it's one of those things that I think will always go back and forth as it relates to that, because although some people really want to go back to the beginning of time where women were not outside of the home working, they were really involved and tasked with keeping certain things done and taken care of as it relates to the children in the house. The men were the ones tasked to go outside, be the breadwinner, take care of the women. And I just feel that in this day and age that we're living, it's very hard to stick to something like that or even try to go back there, because society in itself is just different. Times are different with the society and the pressures that we're dealing with now. Unfortunately, sometimes you need um, that two income household to sustain your life, at least here in the United States of America, right? And if you're already used to a certain upbringing or you're used to a certain lifestyle, it's not the same where you only have one person having, the income, and makes things sometimes not necessarily difficult, because I don't want to put that out there, because it can be done and some people are doing it. It just makes your decision making a little different based on how it is that you choose to live, based on what you can afford, right? So whether you're a woman in the workplace or you're a woman where your work is in the home, there is still value in making sure you embrace your femininity, because regardless on which side of the spectrum you're in, you're still a woman and you can embrace and have those feminine attributes, as well. So I got into this a little bit, but I'll just touch on it since it's on my notes here. Femininity varies across cultures, and it is influenced by personal experience and societal expectations, which is kind of what I talked about in the societal pressures that I just discussed now. So different cultures in the world view femininity different, and a lot of it has to do with what is expected of the woman. Because femininity, people just 100% attribute it to the woman. The views or cultural views of femininity differ based on where you are in the world. So that makes a big difference. Where you have many of the women, I can speak for where I am now in the United States, many of the women do work outside of the home. So the societal views on what femininity is for a working woman may be different for societal view for a woman who, I have family who live in Haiti. I have extended family who live in the Caribbean, and a lot of the women in the Caribbean, some of them don't work, not necessarily by choice or virtue, it's just how it is. And some of the women that do work in Haiti, they're also still expected to do certain things because that's the role of the woman. Never mind, she's also now taken on the working aspect, meaning bringing in income. A lot of times that doesn't get any pardon, right? It's still like, okay, you've taken this on, but this is still your responsibility as well. So yes, culturally, that can make a difference or impact how femininity is viewed as it relates to expectations, right? One of the things that I want to talk about now has to do with recognizing the loss of femininity. So sometimes you might feel signs that you feel disconnected or separated from your femininity. And as a woman, sometimes we feel that when it comes to whatever part or time in your life that you're in, you might be dealing with a loss of confidence. You might be dealing with, societal pressures, right? Back to what I was explaining before. Societal pressures may have you feel like you've lost your femininity, meaning because in America, a lot of us women work, we may feel like we're not as soft, or we don't have time to do the feminine things to bring back what we feel we need because of the pressure that we have to work as well. So as a working woman, you might feel that you've lost your femininity because you work 40 plus hours a week. And of course, there's still responsibilities for you to tend to when you get home. So wherein lies the time remaining for you to take care of self, for you to do the things that you feel will deem added value to your femininity. And like I was saying earlier in the video, some of that includes going to get a massage, going to get your hair professionally done, going to shop for maybe new clothes or shoes or high heels, right? So that you can present feminine. Going to get that manicure and pedicure that you feel like you want and you need. So many women feel like they lose their femininity based on what they define their femininity as, because of the pressures that they have and the time that they lack to be able to dig back into and give back to themselves. Other ways that some women are feeling a loss of femininity or feeling disconnected from it is based on the external factors, such as, again, media, what we see in the media and societal expectations, trauma, any internal factors like self-criticism. Some women may be dealing with mental health, issues, and that may lead to them having a crisis as it relates to being able to identify their femininity. So another example, at least in my experience, um, after having my children, although giving birth and delivering a child, whether vaginally, with medication, in terms of pain medication, no pain medication, home birth, hospital birth, cesarean section, whatever. Once you delivered a child, to me, that's one of the most feminine things that, one can do and attribute to their femininity, right? But as it relates to the trauma or the mental health aspect that oftentimes follows this act of giving birth, that is one of the ways where women could feel that they've lost or disconnected from their femininity. For instance, postpartum depression is something that's very real. And in my personal experience, after having done this heroic and strong and powerful and feminine thing of delivering, the children, I feel less than. I feel hurt because I'm hurt physically, right? And am I able to take that time and heal when I also now have to take care of, the child that was just born? They didn't ask to be here. So just like I've done this heroic feminine act, to continue that, I now have to care for this new being. And if I cry, or if I ask for help, or if I'm dealing with the emotional and mental stress that postpartum also brings, I feel like I've now disconnected from my femininity. And I dealt with that personally. So I personally and totally understand from that perspective. So one of the things that I had to learn to do is give myself grace. And I also try to help encourage other new moms to give yourself grace, because the entire process is just that. It's a process. You don't start off the process in femininity, and as the process goes along, you're no longer in femininity. It doesn't work that way. So I also help work with women to allow them to continue to tap into their femininity and know that right now your femininity just looks different. It's presenting differently. You have different responsibilities now in terms of embracing and getting through. You did not lose your femininity. You now just have to, work with it differently because of the stage that you're in. And let's say it wasn't a situation like postpartum. It could have been, some trauma that happened, that may affect one's femininity, or for them to feel that they've lost their femininity. An example of that may be a horrible breakup or a bad divorce. And a lot of the times, women blame themselves if a situation like that occurs and feel like they've lost their femininity, because as a quote unquote woman, as a feminine being, they played a part in not being able to cultivate this relationship with this other person, where in actuality, a lot of the times, or some of the times, we don't know it, just based on the situation. It may not have been the person's fault, right? Other people get to pick and choose who they want to be with. So although it's something that's really difficult, if someone decides that they no longer want to continue in the relationship, that doesn't take away from your femininity or make you less of a woman. But I know a lot of people, a lot of women tend to look at it that way because they feel that maybe it's something that they weren't doing or something that they're lacking feminine wise, which caused, this to end, when in actuality, sometimes that's not the case. And in the event that there is a horrible breakup, right, of a relationship, whether it's a friendship, a marriage, whatever it is, we, as it relates to being feminine or embracing our femininity, have to also learn to be self-aware and take responsibility and accountability for that, especially if you know you played a role in that. That's part of femininity as well. Knowing, okay, I acknowledge that this happened. I see what happened. I'm reflecting on what I could do differently to help prevent this from happening again. And you embrace the season that you're in as it relates to being able to get over this without blaming yourself or thinking that you've lost your femininity, altogether, right? And sometimes too, when breakups happen, some women who may deem themselves as more feminine women feel like they weren't given the space or allotted the environment to embrace their femininity or practice their femininity. So that's something else that we have to consider and have women give themselves grace for as it relates to being in relation with other people. Okay. So I kind of talked about this already. I'm jumping ahead of my notes, but some of the ways that, we can work on reconnecting with our femininity involve self-reflection and acceptance. And that's what I just talked about. Being able to take a step back, reflect on, what exactly happened, take accountability for whatever decision you made or whatever role you played in something that relates to, a change that's happening or something major that's happening in your life, and being able to reflect and be self-aware is very, very good. And one of the ways that you're able to do that, at least with me, and I find that it helps me a lot, is to practice meditation, practice meditation. Some people like to go to church. If you're a believer, sit with your therapist, ways to help get your femininity back and do that self-acceptance and, reflection is talking to someone about how you're feeling and, what things you could have done different, how you want to see your life going forward. Therapy is very instrumental as well. And if you're a believer, sometimes you have a pastor or someone around you that can, help you do that. Another thing is journaling. I feel journaling is very, very beneficial, and it really helps you to get those feelings out. And sometimes by writing and going back to read, you're able to take in your experience and be able to do, better next time. Another way to reconnect with your femininity is to embrace being vulnerable. So embracing your vulnerability. And it's important to recognize that vulnerability is a strength and a part of the feminine experience. And that ties back into what I talked about with the postpartum. Some women feel disconnected from their femininity after having given birth because of what they're physically going through, which means because they're physically have done this heroic thing, and they can't see it through because they're physically hurt or emotionally, they're all over the place, or, they're dealing with postpartum, they think that they've lost it. No, it's okay to be vulnerable and ask for that help and allow yourself the time, the grace, and the space to heal and move forward. So allowing vulnerability is another way to reconnect with your femininity. Body positivity and self-care, really practicing your self-care and body positivity I think is a big, 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 big deal. Okay. And self-care can be anything. It could be taking time out to read a favorite book that you want, going to be grounded, walking outside in nature, having the sun hit your skin, going to the beach, just taking time out to promote you. And body positivity, wear what you like, wear the colors that you like. Some people dress a certain way or only wear certain colors because they are afraid of what other people are going to say and think. And although we're all human and some of us deal with that a lot, it shouldn't be the say all end all in what you ultimately decide to do, right? Just like we all come in all shapes, we all come in different sizes, we all come in different shades. So it's important to embrace what body you do have and just adorn it in a way that will make you feel great about yourself, and definitely incorporating that self-care to make sure that you're able to align yourself with what you know makes you happy so that you can refuel. Just like when you have your car and it's ran all day and it's out of gas, yes, we run out of gas too. So one of the ways that we fill our tank back up is through self-care. Okay. And another way that you can reconnect with your femininity is figuring out a way to embrace or reintroduce creativity into your life. For instance, you can do, art, dance, writing, like I was saying, whether you're writing a book, whether you're journaling. A lot of times we take time out just to be creative, right? You'll go to art spaces, get inspiration from seeing different colors or animals or different things. You may want to find ideas about how to host a gathering, right? Do different things where you can bring other friends together and help them through whatever they're going through, or just some sort of camaraderie with other people so that you're in a space with like-minded women and you don't feel like you're in this, bubble alone by yourself. So those are some of the ways that you can reconnect with your femininity. Some of the other practical steps that you can do is finding a routine and, putting steps in place. A lot of the times we get thrown off our game because something will happen and you either just don't feel like it, you lose motivation, you just aren't inspired. So I feel that one of the ways that we're able to overcome that is to instill and try to stick to a routine and allow yourself the flexibility so that if one day things don't go exactly as you planned it, you're able to pivot and, rearrange a bit, right? Because in life, different things will happen and you can't always go according to plan. And that's okay. That's just part of being able to mend and mold to whatever's going on at the time. And having that routine really helps, because one of the things that I've been doing as part of my getting my femininity back and or embracing it more has been my nighttime routine. Now, I've been consuming a lot of content, and a lot of women are talking about getting into the self-care and how they do this and how they do that. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I go to sleep late. And if I don't go to sleep late, I can't get this done and this won't be done and da 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 da. I'm going to tell you, for the past month or so, for about a month or so, I've been determined to make sure I get my self-care routine, one, on track, figure out what I like. How do I like to rest and go down at the end of a long day? And I try to stick to it. And I try to not go past a certain time as my quote unquote bedtime, because not only does it help to really just clear my mind of stuff after a long day, being able to rest my body also helps, because then I wake up the next day feeling a lot more refreshed and ready to take on or start my routine for that day. So part of my nighttime routine involves making sure I take my shower. Every other day I use my loofah. I make sure, and when I say loofah, meaning I use it, but every other day I'll add like a special scent to it to make sure that I, kind of just put myself mentally in that mood, just that nice feminine, soft scent, especially after a long day. Instead of just, sometimes I used to just throw on a t-shirt or old something and go to bed. No, I take my time now and pick out my night clothes, right? So just like I have my children switch into their pajamas to go to sleep, that's what my mom used to do with us. We switched into our pajamas when it was time for bed. I had lost that. So I found my way back to making sure that I have my nighttime clothes on. It really helps me feel sexy. It really helps me feel comfortable. So that's always good. I'm into using my linen spray now to help sanitize my bed, just really soft, right? I have my candle going. I don't turn the candle on every night because I don't want to forget, but putting on my lotion, because I used to not put on lotion because I had hyperhidrosis throughout my entire childhood to adolescent to adult life. And then I would just not put on lotion. So now I put on my lotion, make sure my skin is well moisturized. I do my skincare for my face. So incorporating that nighttime routine as part of my self-care really has helped me feel a little bit more feminine and recapture that back. And another thing that I want to talk about as it relates to ways to do that and get support is to find community support. Something like this podcast, right? Other people that are going through the same thing, you can hear some tips that they give on how they're able to incorporate femininity back into their life, and just finding a supportive women, which is what I was talking about on the creative side, where you have those 1, 2, 3 girlfriends, however many you have, find that space to be creative. Think of something, even if you're not going out to spend money, maybe they can reconvene at your home. You have pillows down, you have flowers, you're ordering food, you have a movie, or we're just talking. So finding that community of support of people that are like-minded and care about you to be able to share what you're going through, because in hearing their situation, oftentimes it reciprocates and helps you too. Okay. And just to kind of get into the wind down of this particular topic, because society plays such a big role nowadays in defining what the expectations are for what's considered feminine, it's important for us to try to figure out a way to embrace what society has to say and see how your take on it can help change or make the situation a little better. So for instance, balancing the different roles, like I mentioned before, nowadays, at least here in the USA, many women work outside of the home. So it's important to figure out a way to navigate the balance between career and family while you're also embracing your femininity with your personal life. And that's why I wanted to make sure that I started little baby steps. And with that, I started my nighttime routine, because as a working woman and an entrepreneur, a lot of my time is dedicated to everybody else. So, when you're out there doing everyone else's work or working for everybody else or in the benefit of everybody else, you definitely tend to lose yourself, because what's one of the first things you say when you get home? Oh my gosh, I don't have time to do this. I've been working all day. I don't have time. So you have to figure out a way to balance it. And so, yes, I'm still feminine after having gone out and worked 10 hours a day. I have help in my home in terms of someone which is my mother-in-law, helping to care for the children, making sure they have dinner. It doesn't make me less feminine because I'm not the one that just came from working and went to the stove and cooked. This is a whole family affair, all hands on deck. I'm learning to rely on my village. And just because I do have that help doesn't mean that I'm not tired and that I should be doing something else, right? Because a lot of times that's what we do. We feel guilty for having that extra help, and then we then try to do more to compensate for what we feel guilty for not having been able to do. Just a vicious cycle. So being able to balance, the professional career and, my femininity as it relates to my personal life, and, trying to incorporate and balance both is also very, very important, because what's the other side to that? The other side to that is, okay, don't work. So then I can be feminine, quote unquote, based on society. I can be feminine and be home all day and not work. Okay, well then where's the other half of the money, right? So that's one thing. Or the other option is, okay, I have to work. It still doesn't make me less of a woman. So let's try to incorporate that little downtime for me, which is my nighttime routine. And I'm going to incorporate a little bit more things, because at the end of the day, you are tired. It's been a long day. Our bodies are human. We're not machines. So you have to also listen to your body. But that is one of the ways that I try to balance my daily career and daytime responsibilities with my personal responsibilities at home, and then carving out a little bit of time in the rest of the day to do something for myself. And if something doesn't get done, guess what? It'll be there tomorrow. Okay. The next one is to try and challenge the stereotypes. This is the one that's a little bit difficult for me in the terms of challenging stereotypes, because that is all you see, a lot of feminine versus masculine perspective in the content that's we're consuming today. And a lot of the conversation goes nowhere. I feel it's just a whole bunch of people giving their opinion. Nobody is really willing to what they consider acquiesce or back down because everybody feels that they're right. So as it relates to challenging the stereotype, I would say do that as it relates to yourself, right? Just because the stereotype in society is that women should be doing X, Y, Z, A, B, C, challenge that by incorporating it in your own personal life and seeing what you can do for you to challenge that versus trying to change the minds of everyone else. So again, just in my little example, mine is challenging that stereotype, meaning I can still go out and save the world, right? And be a super busy woman during the day. But in the evening, I'm going to figure out time for me without feeling guilty. And maybe sometimes on the weekends, doing a little bit of extended self-care without feeling guilty either. So I would challenge the stereotype in that respect as it relates to yourself versus having online debates with people, which sometimes end up going nowhere. And one of the last things we can do is figure out a way to embrace femininity and allow it to empower you as a woman and allow it to empower you to be a stronger sense of who you are. Because at the end of the day, as women, we are inherently powerful, intuitive, and, wise creatures. So it's important to always remember that femininity that we're born with and use that to empower yourself to, overcome different obstacles, allowing yourself grace as you go through maybe the valley sometime. And ultimately, once you've gone through whatever obstacles that you're going through, you still go on to accomplish your goals and, fulfill your dreams and aspirations. So use that as a way to empower yourself to do better and be better and feel better about yourself. Okay. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I know a lot of times, part of empowering ourselves to remember the beauty and the wisdom and the strength that women have as it relates to our femininity is something that's inherent and something that we're born with. So I wanted to share a couple Bible verses as a person who is a believer so that, the women listeners out there can dig into and study a little bit more as it relates to finding that sense of help and support to continue to dig deep into their femininity and embrace it. Okay. So the first one here is Proverbs 31, verse 25 to 26. And it says, "She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue." So that verse, it reflects and highlights the strength, dignity, wisdom, and kindness that women have, embodying both inner and outer beauty. So I'll read it one more time. Proverbs 31, verse 25 to 26. "She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue." Isn't that beautiful? Such a beautiful, beautiful verse and a reminder, right, of us inherent as women with our femininity. The next one is 1 Peter 3, verse 3 and 4. "Your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight." So let's read that again. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 3 and 4. "Your beauty should not come from outward adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of your inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight." So this particular verse, it emphasizes the importance of inner beauty and a gentle spirit over outward appearances. And I want to talk about that a little bit because that takes us back to what I started to mention when we talked about the emotional aspect of femininity, right? A lot of the times, femininity involves having a more gentle approach to your spirit. The essence of who you are is like a gentle person who's able to control their emotions and not act or speak in a vulgar way or in a way that deliberately hurts other people. So I kind of attribute this verse to that as well. Okay. Um, so that's pretty much it. So I hope this helped with femininity and, just a few closing thoughts to just remember to be encouraged as a woman. Again, you are inherently beautiful. You are inherently powerful. You have wisdom. You have this intuition. We have this strength and power. And as women, we just have to remember to tap into all of this that we've been blessed with and we're born with to be able to maximize all of the feminine attributes that, we have. And it's important to be able to believe in yourself and just figure out a way to carve out some time for you. And I think that once we're able to carve out some time for you and remember that you are important and you do matter, that kind of helps you, you know, be and continue on your path to reconnecting with your femininity. So that is it for today's episode. I look forward to hearing about any comments or any suggestions. Anyone who would like to connect with me on a deeper level or to work one-on-one as it relates to embracing your femininity or just getting help as it relates to trying to overcome certain obstacles that is preventing you from being able to fully dip into your femininity, definitely contact me. My website, www.mcdbe.com. And I thank you so much and look forward to our next episode. Enjoy your day.